You touch on an interesting point there, and I think it ties in with the kind of journey you went through with eventually starting to build FastAPI. But people like, especially in the MLOps space and the machine learning space, there are so many tools and libraries and frameworks out there. It's hard to, you can't become an expert in them all. It's in fact, it's hard to even use them all, right? How do you pick the winners for you, or do you just stick to one and get good, or do you think, what's your approach for like sifting through all that stuff, right? It's hard.
That's a good question, and like I don't have it figured out, and it's so overwhelming. And like like I see in particular people that are new to the field, like people that are learning, and that they feel so overwhelmed, and they feel like this massive imposter syndrome, but they don't know that we all feel the same imposter syndrome, and that we are all feeling like, oh, this is so impossible to learn everything. I remember the author of PyTorch tweeting about it like some months or maybe 1 or 2 years ago or something, like saying, I don't know how to keep keep the pace of the things that are changing. Like how do you keep reading papers, reading these things, like learning new libraries? I feel it's very difficult and very complex. My personal approach is like, well, before I used to read a lot of blog posts trying to compare one thing and the other, but then in the end, in practice, I ended up realizing that these blog posts, in the end, are like in one way or another biased to the point of view of that person. And I have been finding more and more the things that I really want to optimize. For example, autocompletion and inline errors and like editor support, and these things are very important to me, and I want to be able to have that. Whatever comparison is done by someone else is probably not gonna have in mind the things that I think are more important to me. What I have been doing like lately when exploring technologies or things like that is to try to follow the getting started tutorial of those technologies, and just like try to follow the very first steps and try to get the feeling of how it looks like, how it works. And that gives me a lot more of a sense of like, do I like this or not that much? And at the same time, if following the getting started guide takes 1 week, then it's also maybe not a great indicator, because like maybe this thing is too complex. And like, I don't know, maybe I can start with something simpler and see if that's good enough for the things that I want to do. That's also what I recommend with FastAPI. Like when you are thinking like, should I use FastAPI or not? Instead of just reading what others have said that you should do or not, I recommend just like reading the first page, like the main page of the website, just the main page, and following that tutorial and like executing it and like running it in the editor. And it will take like 10 times or 10 minutes or something like that. It's just that, no, not more. But that's enough to get a feeling of, hey, I like this or not. Like, do I like this approach, or is it too weird to me? And like, I'm so used to working with Django that I really don't want to try this thing. It's too weird. Or maybe you can say like, okay, this looks nice. Maybe I can try more. I think that's kind of my approach now. Try to use the actual tool a little bit. In some cases, from the same examples, now I can, before running the code, I can know that, hey, this cannot provide autocompletion. This won't be able to do checks for the types, because there's no way to annotate this type of thing. Just because like I have been getting so deep into this type of notation and these things. But I feel like the best way is just to try to run the code, try to test it locally a little bit, and that gives a lot more sense of like, does it work for me or not?